Only after the assembled giant bone dragon disappeared into the horizon did everyone present come back to their senses. Though Lu Fan was no longer gripping Tao Xiaoman's wrist as tightly as before, the two were still very close to each other. Tao Xiaoman's cheeks were flushed as she quietly reminded Lu Fan, "Hey, aren't you going to let go of me?" "Oh," Lu Fan belatedly realized, smiled apologetically, and released Tao Xiaoman. She stepped back, avoiding any mention of their previous intimate contact, and instead tried to appear composed. She raised her fist and snorted, "Himph, don't think I'm afraid of you just because I can't beat you. If you tease me again, I'll punch you." As she spoke, she flashed her small white teeth. Lu Fan merely smiled at the sight of this, his mind still on the bone dragon that had soared away earlier. The other girls had not noticed Tao Xiaoman's unusual behavior. They were all focused on that thing. Han Ke even actively asked Lu Fan what that thing was earlier, and why so many monsters had assembled together to head deep into the divine bone forest. Lu Fan shook his head and said, "I don't know either. All those monsters in the sky, we've seen them all before during our journey here. I originally thought that this divine bone forest would be no different from other beginner areas, just with many level 70 monsters. But now, things do not seem to be as simple as that. Either the monsters here have some unique characteristics different from elsewhere, which allows them to assemble together to form new monsters, or something strange has happened here that caused the monsters to undergo some kind of change." Jian Ying shook her head, unable to determine the truth as she said, "That bone dragon flew away too quickly. I did not even have time to use appraisal to check on its attributes. But, judging by its appearance and aura, it must be at least a gold-grade boss. I've read many documents, and I've never seen regular monsters assembling to form a boss before. Perhaps the monsters here, compared to elsewhere, are." Just as Jian Ying was about to share her thoughts, Lu Fan shook his head, speaking with certainty. "I don't think this is an issue with the monsters, but with the area itself. Haven't you felt something strange? I mean, doesn't this whole place give you a strange feeling?" Hearing Lu Fan say this, everyone looked at each other and shook their heads. Obviously for them, this was no different from the regular area. Although the monsters here were indeed somewhat strange, were undead-type monsters not usually like this. Seeing that nobody had any special feelings about it, Lu Fan still did not waver in his thoughts. He knew, with his black dragon perception skill, he could not only see through concealment, but his perceptive abilities also exceeded what normal people could perceive. He could sense things that ordinary people could not. In fact, the deeper they went into the divine bone forest, the more Lu Fan could sense a mysterious power affecting this whole area. This feeling, though, for some reason, this feeling was familiar to Lu Fan. It was just that he could not quite place what it was. After thinking it over several times, Lu Fan decided not to dwell on it further. Whether this area was strange or not did not concern him in the end. If this place really had some anomaly, it would be Extremistis country's problem. What he needed to do right now was to quickly find Teacher Guhan and rescue her. Then they can return back to Dragon Capital University. Lu Fan decided to stop thinking about it and was about to continue following the paper dole to find Guhan. When he saw the direction the paper dole pointed to, Lu Fan confirmed that Guhan's location was actually in the same direction that Bone Dragon had flown. Lu Fan frowned at this. However, after thinking about it, he figured this was also convenient. Seems like I can uncover what is really going on with the divine bone forest and rescue her at that same time. After a brief rest, Lu Fan continued leading the girls to follow the paper dole forward. They encountered many monsters and even bosses along the way, all of which were easily killed, and as they advanced, they witnessed 2 more instances of countless monsters intertwining in mid-air and heading toward the depths of the divine bone forest. The first time, Lu Fan did not dare act rashly and watched as the newly formed bone dragon flew away. But the second time, Lu Fan grew bolder and directly had Bao Bao and Xiao Ye breathe out dragon breath at the intertwined monsters. Under the dragon breath of the two pet dragons, the monsters' defenses could not withstand it at all, and they were all killed, turning into experience points. What was strange was that, not considering the other monsters, flying bone spirits in particular were monsters with extremely high agility attribute and should have been able to easily dodge their dragon breath. However, the flying bone spirits that got intertwined with the other monsters acted as if they had not seen the dragon breath. They made no attempt to dodge or escape, even as they were incinerated. Although this meant that the intertwined group of monsters became easy experience points for Lu Fan's group, the monster's abnormal behavior was indeed concerning. Lu Fan still could not figure out the reason behind it, and finally decided to take it one step at a time. Those bone dragons flew in a very consistent direction. As they continued forward, perhaps before finding Guhan, they would discover this area's biggest secret. Soon, another 2 days passed. The monsters around the Divine Bone Forest had exceeded level 80, and there were more varieties. These monsters were all made of white bones, and in a place like the Divine Bone Forest, they seemed to have a natural camouflage. Although Lu Fan was strong, he had 4 girls to protect, so their progress was not all that fast. However, throughout this journey, under Lu Fan's powerful strength and wilderness survival know-hows, no one had been injured. At the same time, the experience points provided by high-level monsters here had allowed everyone to level up. Finally, Lu Fan's group had advanced to the depths of the Divine Bone Forest, where the surrounding tree, like white bones, had disappeared, replaced by a not too tall white bone mountain. This bone mountain was only about 300 meters tall, so they could only see it when they got close. In this peak, white bones of various sizes and thicknesses were arranged together, without any pattern. It was as if this place had once been a battlefield, and all the monsters had died, leaving behind this mountain of bones. Such a scene was quite spectacular. Lu Fan observed for a while and discovered that this was likely the very center of the Divine Bone Forest. Here, Lu Fan could even more strongly feel that mysterious power. It was now clear this was not merely a fragment of his imagination. Seems like the secret of the Divine Bone Forest is hidden here. At this point, the paper doll leading the way continued to fly forward, and finally disappeared into the white bone mountain in front of everyone. If nothing went wrong, Guhan's hiding spot should be in there too. Just as Lu Fan was about to speak, he heard the sound of bones clicking against each other, crack, crack, from above his head. Everyone looked up and saw 3 giant bone dragons flying from 3 directions, landing at the foot of the white bone mountain. After the first bone dragon landed at the foot of the mountain, its body crouched down, blending with the other white bones, making it impossible to discern. It looked just like a pile of white bones on the bone mountain. Lu Fan quickly used appraisal on it, but found that it seemed to be in a special state and could not be identified by appraisal. Lu Fan quickly looked at the second bone dragon that had flown here and used appraisal again. This time, appraisal provided feedback. Appraisal indicated this was a level 85 platinum grade boss called Divine Bone Flying Dragon. This boss had extremely high attributes and came with a simple description. The description indicated that although it was called Divine Bone Flying Dragon, it actually had no relation to the dragon race. It was a product influenced by some special power, assembled from countless ordinary monsters from the Divine Bone Forest. It was just because its form resembled that of a flying dragon that it was called Divine Bone Flying Dragon. As for exactly what special power influenced it, there was no detailed explanation in the description. The second Divine Bone Flying Dragon landed on the White Bone Mountain and, like the first, crouched down and merged with the mountain. Subsequently, its attributes also disappeared and could not be identified by appraisal. Lu Fan looked at the third one and found that indeed. The third was also a Divine Bone Flying Dragon, although its attributes were slightly lower compared to the second one. possibly because fewer monsters were used to assemble its body. Finally, all three divine bone-flying dragons merged into the peak. However, the mountain was still not very tall and showed no visible differences. But after witnessing what just happened, everyone knew this mountain was definitely not ordinary. If this white bone mountain was really formed by so many divine bone-flying dragons gathering one by one, then how many thousands of these divine bone-flying dragons had gathered here? Although these divine bone-flying dragons were all in a static state and could barely be considered monsters anymore if they all awakened, this was thousands of level 85 platinum grade bosses. It would be more than enough to give anyone a headache! No, if it was just anyone else, that would already be their end. Looking at such a strange existence before them, the girls' expressions all turned somewhat unsightly. So, they turned their attention to their team leader. Lufan? Lufan, what should we do now? Kinkyu gripped her staff, her eyes full of faith. Lufan thought for a moment and said, "The paper doll has disappeared. Obviously, Teacher Guhan is inside this mountain made of white bones." After a pause, Lufan continued, "This place is really strange, but that does actually make me curious about the secrets behind this white bone mountain. I have a feeling that besides Teacher Guhan, there must be something else inside. In a bit, I want to try to dig open a path into the peak. It would be best if we can rescue her, and if we can get some unexpected gains, that would be even better. But if there's any danger, we need to quickly escape, so I really need everyone to stay focused. If anything unusual happens, immediately run away." Hankei had a softer heart, and after hearing this, she could not bear but ask, "If we run away, what about Teacher Guhan?" Lufan helplessly replied, "If we are forced to escape, we'll have to give up on rescuing her. I can't risk getting ourselves into danger just for her." "Auntie, you understand, right?" Jian Ying nodded, strongly agreeing with Lufan's plan. Lufan is right. It's best if we can rescue her. But if it's too dangerous, forcing ourselves to rescue Teacher Guhan would only be pointlessly throwing our lives away. Sister Han, in regards to this, we should all listen to Lufan. Hanki sighed and nodded. "All right, I understand." Seeing that no one had any objections, Lufan decided to not waste any more time. He could clearly sense that there must be something extraordinary inside the White Bone Mountain. So, this time, he took no chances and called out all his pet dragons. Even the two fallen corpse holy dragon kings appeared. Lufan did not let them join the ranks of the demon army. After all, the 5 national guardians and demon army were products of extremist country. Letting them fight each other could conceal what truly happened better. The two fallen corpse holy dragon kings were already his core combat forces among Lufan's pet dragons. They could now provide a 40% attribute enhancement effect through Xiaoku's dragon's bond skill. Thus, just by keeping these two on the field would greatly increase his own combat power. Now Lufan had 6 pet dragons beside him, and Xiaokui started applying all her buffs to everyone present, including both humans and pet dragons. This raised everyone's combat power to its peak, while Jade Shield also provided everyone with a layer of protection. Even so, Lufan dare not act rashly. From his experience in the far north, he knew such mysterious places could not be underestimated. Thus, he made the decision to send in cannon fodder first to test just how dangerous this White Bone Mountain really was. With Xiao Ku's dragon cry, 4 mirror image projections appeared beside Xiao Ye. The 4 mirror image projections were identical to Xiao Ye and flew toward the White Bone Mountain. Everyone watched the White Bone Mountain from afar, wanting to see what changes would occur as outsiders approached. As Xiao Ye's mirror image projections got within a certain range, the White Bone Mountain finally showed some changes. Some white bones at the foot of the mountain suddenly moved, and divine bone-flying dragons emerged one after another, spreading their wings and flying directly toward Xiao Ye's mirror image projections with hostility. In just an instant, over 10 divine bone-flying dragons appeared on the White Bone Mountain. Obviously, although they had been in a dormant state, where even appraisal could not affect them. Once intruders appeared, these monsters would immediately react. However, Xiao Ye's mirror image projections were not afraid of these level 85 platinum-grade bosses. It was just that there were too many opponents. Divine Bone flying dragons kept emerging from the White Bone Mountain in an endless stream. Once surrounded, even those mirror image projections would struggle to cope. So Lu Fan had them breathe out dragon breath once before retreating back to his position. Those divine bone flying dragons were not about to let the intruders who came escape so easily. They pursued in dense swarms, conservatively estimated at 30 or 40. 30 or 40 level 85 platinum grade bosses would make even fourth profession players break out in a cold sweat. However, this was Lu Fan they were facing. He was not afraid, not in the slightest. Instead, he got excited. It was as if all he was seeing was moving experience points. Seems like Bao Bao and my daughters can level up again. Since they have delivered themselves to us, it would be rude to not start killing. Although the opponents were high-level bosses, Lu Fan did not have Xiao Ku transform into her divine tree of life form and active eternal guardian for Han Qi and the others. After all, he and his 6 pet dragons were at the front, serving as the first line. He knew these bosses would not be able to break through to their backline. Lu Fan directly transformed into the Golden Dragon King, charging into the front lines with Jade Shield active. In terms of attributes, once he transformed into the Golden Dragon King and was enhanced by Xiao Q's various buffs, Lu Fan naturally had attributes that surpassed the Divine Bone Dragon, especially in endurance. This made it very difficult for the Divine Bone Dragon to break through his defenses. Therefore, Lu Fan directly fought against 3 enemies at once, thoroughly enjoying the thrill of transforming into a dragon and engaging in close combat. He even used dragon language replication to directly copy Xing Chen's Shatter Star. If he felt pressured, he could simply channel one of Xing Chen's attacks to blast the enemy away. Besides Lu Fan, the other dragons also did their part. Xiao Ye excelled in both magic and physical attacks. Being the strongest among all the pet dragons after she made her move, she easily suppressed 3 Divine Bone dragons. Whether it was Dragon Claw and Dragon Tail attacks or Dragon Breath, all dealt fatal damage to the opponents. Xing Chen maintained her usual attitude, treating it like she was clocking in for work. She was not particularly enthusiastic about fighting, but still chose 10 Divine Bone dragons as opponents. Now Xing Chen's level was not low anymore, and with Xiao Ku's buffs, her strength attribute had already exceeded 300k. Even her casual attacks were not something a level 85 platinum grade boss could withstand. In no time, the Divine Bone Dragon was reduced to white bones. As for Bao Bao, he was even more straightforward. Flying behind Lu Fan and the pet dragons, he just kept unleashing wild bombardments. Moreover, as Bao Bao released his skills, a lightning boundary gradually appeared, with more and more crimson lightning strands appearing in the surrounding air. Those Divine Bone dragons did not even understand they were digging their own grave, and all suffered while moving, getting scorched by the crimson lightning, neither able to move nor willing to stay still. The fallen corpse Holy Dragon Kings displayed combat power was not as impressive as the 3 pure blood combat specialized dragons, but it was still satisfactory. They showed no disadvantage in combat and demonstrated the prowess of the dragon race. Although the enemy was numerous and fierce, when they encountered Lu Fan's pet dragon dream team, they were crushed in one round of attacks. The strength of both sides was not even on the same plane. Watching Lu Fan and his pet dragons display such formidable combat power, Jian Ying and the others were dumbfounded. Previously in the Death Desert Ocean, Lu Fan basically let the 9 hell demons handle everything, rarely leading his pet dragons into battle. Now, with the 9 hell demons gone, Lu Fan and his pet dragons took to the battlefield themselves, showing even more impressive strength than before. One person alone was chasing and killing dozens of level 85 platinum grade bosses. How was this reasonable? The battle naturally did not last long, with over 30 bosses being surrounded and eliminated by Lu Fan and his pet dragons. Moreover, Lu Fan and his pet dragons had not even used many of their skills. They had not even utilized Jade Mirror Image to summon more mirror image projections to assist in battle. There was naturally a reason for it. Doing such a thing was simply not necessary. After clearing all the bosses, Bao Bao leveled up again. Such abundant experience points made Lu Fan very pleased. Looking at this white bone mountain, he calculated that if they continued farming like this, eliminating all the divine bone dragons, Bao Bao might even reach level 20. Lu Fan did not waste time. Considering that such a large mountain of bones could probably form quite a lot more divine bone dragons, he continued sending Xiaoye's mirror image projection to the bone mountain to lure more bosses for him to kill. Actually, Lu Fan could have charged up with his pet dragons, like when they cleared the Dark Castle. He could have allowed his pet dragons to release their area of effect skills to level the entire bone mountain. But he still was not clear about Gu Han's situation, and it would be troublesome if they accidentally killed her along with the mountain. So, he decided to take it slow and steady, gradually luring out and killing the bosses from the bone mountain. He figured it would not take too long to level the entire mountain and rescue teacher Gu Han. Every time Xiaoye's mirror image projections circled the bone mountain, they could bring back 30 to 40 divine bone dragons, and Lu Fan and his pet dragons would spend some time killing them, immediately gaining large amounts of experience points. After 5 or 6 repetitions of this, the high-level bosses provided enough experience points for almost everyone present to level up. Just as Lu Fan was about to signal his dragons to attack, a voice suddenly exploded in his mind. "Are you a fallen corpse slave? Or a holy mountain slave?" This voice was like a thunderclap, yet it was ethereal. Rather than a voice, it was more like a consciousness that sensed to his mind. Lu Fan turned to look at Han Kei and the others. Seeing their expressions were completely normal, he realized that the other party's consciousness was only communicating with him. At this moment, the other party's voice sounded in Lu Fan's mind again. "I speak only with you. The others there are not yet worthy to comprehend me. You have both fallen corpse and holy mountain auras. How very strange. What is your relationship with those two?" Lu Fan smiled and directly replied, "What relationship I have with them is none of your business." This response made the divine bone ancient god silent for nearly 5 seconds. After the silence, it said, "If you're related to fallen corpse or holy mountain, then leave quickly, and I won't kill you. But if you dare disturb my peace again, I won't let you off!" As it said this, the divine bone clone opened its giant mouth and let out a threatening roar. At the same time, ghost fires lit up in the divine bone clone's dragon eye sockets, and its pressure increased dramatically. Lu Fan remained unmoved. After all, he did not believe the other party had refrained from immediately attacking him merely out of respect for the other 2 ancient gods. When fighting Charles before, Lu Fan had fought with the Holy Mountain Ancient God's Ancient God projection. The opponent must have sensed the fallen corpse Ancient God's aura on him. Yet, it did not show any mercy when attacking. So if anyone claimed there was some friendly relationship between ancient gods, Lu Fan would laugh at them. The fact that it spoke this way was a sign of fear rather than compassion. It was afraid and did not dare to fight head-on. It was a tremendously terrifying existence. However, it currently could not unleash its true power. Was there any bigger opportunity to seize than this? Lu Fan naturally would not listen to the divine bone clone's words and obediently leave. "No, what are you talking about? You letting me go? To tell you the truth, I don't have any relationship with Fallen Corpse and Holy Mountain." Lu Fan smiled, completely refusing to give Divine Bone a way out. This time it made Divine Bone fall into an even longer silence. In fact, Divine Bone was afraid. After all, it saw that Lu Fan had 6 pet dragons, and they were all practically dragon kings! Even though most were still baby dragons, none fully grown for its current condition. They were all formidable opponents. The dragon race's terrifying nature was something it knew better than anyone. Otherwise, it would not have created its clone in the form of a dragon. It knew it had awakened much later than the other ancient gods. The urgent matter was to quickly recover its power. Fighting with so many giant dragons now would only delay the time it took to awakening. If other ancient gods seized on this opportunity to devour it, it would surely perish. It wanted to pretend everything was fine and part ways with Lu Fan. However, Lu Fan did not give it any face, making it both angry and helpless. Finally, its voice sounded in Lu Fan's mind again. "Do you insist on seeking death?" "Oh yes, of course I seek death," Lu Fan responded, expression serious. This one sentence made the Divine Bone clone's aura clearly rise to another level, with killing intent spreading like a tide. At this point, if it retreated, it would completely lose all dignity as a divine being. So, when its anger rose, it did not care about anything else. Relying on its level 90 epic grade clone, it was confident it could win even against so many baby dragons. "Since you insist on seeking death, let me satisfy you!" Divine Bone's consciousness came in waves into Lu Fan's mind, as though someone was roaring. "Very well. I can turn you and that woman into Divine Bone slaves and prepare for my future revival. At the same time, this many giant dragons will allow me to assemble an even stronger body. When I meet Fallen Corpse and Holy Mountain in the future, I will devour them too." As the voice in Lu Fan's mind ended, the Divine Bone clone seemed to explode with rage. It opened its dragon mouth to let out a dragon breath, ready to envelop Lu Fan and his pet dragons in it. The Divine Bone clone was clearly assembled by Divine Bone in the form of a giant dragon. This strange occurrence made Lu Fan and everyone else focus their attention. The white light quickly disappeared, but then the entire bone mountain began to shake. Subsequently, all the bones began to float and reassemble in mid-air. Not just the bones here, but from all across the Divine Bone forest came the cracking sound of bones colliding. Lu Fan could see several waves of monsters intertwining together, merging into the Bone Mountain, making it even larger. Soon, the Bone Mountain, now integrated with more monsters, became several times larger than when Lu Fan first arrived, and as more monsters continued to fly in, its volume kept expanding. These gleaming white bones gradually formed an enormous bone dragon through continuous assembly, appearing incredibly terrifying. The size of this bone dragon exceeded common understanding of monsters. Even Xiao Ye, whose body was already very large, probably was not even 1/10 of its size. An adult giant dragon would probably be about this size, right? Such a huge monster naturally gave off an overwhelming sense of pressure. Its pressure even far exceeded that of the 5 national guardians. Its strength, without doubt, was definitely far above the 5 national guardians. What kind of monster is this? Tao Xiaoman knelt on the ground. Facing such a boss, she did not even have the courage to draw her sword. Lu Fan narrowed his eyes, surveying this monster, using appraisal on it. But the feedback he received left Lu Fan greatly shocked. This enormous bone dragon was not actually a Divine Bone flying dragon, but rather something called Divine Bone clone. It was a level 90 epic grade monster as nightmared. Although it was only 5 levels higher than a hell demon, its attributes were several times higher. This was not surprising. While level 90 did not seem that different from level 85, this was the boundary between a human being able to have their 3rd profession or 4th profession. Though monsters did not have such tiers to their professions, some might not even have professions at all. Nevertheless, at level 90, there was still a watershed difference in power. The Divine Bone clone before them had power exceeding that of all 9 hell demons combined. Such a terrifying existence would have been impossible for Lu Fan to face before entering the National Trial's secret realm. However, right now, Lu Fan was vastly different from before. He had reached level 44. He also possessed 2 mythical grade items and had 6 pet dragons. Even going head-to-head with this level 90 epic grade monster was not an impossible task. In fact, Lu Fan was not even the least bit afraid. What truly concerned Lu Fan was not this boss's strength, but rather its description. Description: a remarkable being slumbers here, revered in ancient times as Divine Bone, with the history of world domination. As eras passed, Divine Bone slowly awakens, its stirring power seeking ways to fully revive. This power had begun to cause subtle changes to the environment where its main body lies. All monsters around it are under its control, gathering together to form its clone. Through this clone, Divine Bone's power will gradually recover, transforming this place into a ruin while controlling all the intelligent creatures it can. They would be turned into slaves, who will exhaust themselves for this revered being, even sacrifice their lives for Divine Bone's complete revival. Ordinary people would be bewildered by this description. However, Lu Fan instantly understood what this so-called Divine Bone was.
An awakening ancient god!
He never expected to encounter another ancient god here. Counting the previous fallen corpse ancient god and holy mountain ancient god, this Divine Bone ancient god was the third ancient god he had encountered. However, unlike the holy mountain ancient god and fallen corpse ancient god, this Divine Bone ancient god had clearly awakened much later. At least the fallen corpse ancient god and holy mountain ancient god had already developed their own ruins and had the ability to create ancient god slaves to help them further awaken. Yet, the Divine Bone ancient god had not yet. He transformed the Divine Bone forest into the Divine Bone ruins. In fact, it had only just managed to form a body, called the Divine Bone clone. This level 90 epic grade boss was its created clone, and it definitely seemed formidable. However, Lu Fan had seen a glimpse of the true power of the fallen corpse ancient god. That ancient god not only had the Blood Moon's owner pulling its coffin, but that black shadow that had chased after Lu Fan. Though he had not clearly seen that figure that chased him, just its aura alone had made him feel such danger that he had immediately fled. In comparison, this Divine Bone ancient god seemed far too inferior. Lu Fan even had a thought. How would it be possible to try to kill it here, while the Divine Bone ancient god has only awakened a small portion of its power? If I can really manage to kill an ancient god, the experience points rewarded would be astronomical, right? Thinking of this, Lu Fan could not help but get excited.